Um, One of my favorite movies, and I should have warned him ahead of time, but one of my favorite movies is called Wall-E, and it's a Pixar animated movie about life on Earth after humans. And as the tale unfolds, we find out later that the humans still live, but they live in a big spaceship in outer space, and they're just floating around. And all of the humans inside this spaceship, all they do is watch TV and drink soda all day long, which hits home to me, by the way. But Wall-E, the main character, is the robot left behind on Earth. Sorry, this should tell you this is a spoiler alert a little bit. And Wall-E's job is to clean up all the garbage left behind, all of the garbage that we left behind. And the adventure of the plot kind of unfolds when Wall-E inadvertently discovers new life on Earth. I don't know about you, but I struggle, and especially in this last year, we have struggled in our family with clutter. And I'm prone to that anyhow. It's kind of a design flaw within me, but we really have been, we can't seem to get ahead of it. And so we really wish we had a Wall-E who would just come into our house and just clean up all the garbage for us, you know. Unfortunately, there are no, I guess they will make robots like that eventually, but not to the scale and the industrial strength that we currently need. But one time, we do this more than once, but there was an occasion in which we all got so fed up, like even the kids are kind of sick of it, to the point where we actually cleaned out the front room. We made a huge Goodwill pile. We got all out of there. We vacuumed, and all of a sudden we had this empty space, like it was carpet. We just rediscovered that our living room was carpeted, and no sooner had we like sat back and chilled out a little bit, that our kitty cat at the time came around the corner, and not knowing what had happened to this room, just gets out into the middle of the carpet and just does a huge stretch. And she was a tiny little thing, but she seemed to like want to fill up this room that's usually filled with just stuff. And now she gets to relax and stretch and kind of be her full self. So now whenever we get to cleaning, we say we need to make Pippa space. Our kitty cat at the time was named Pippa, and so we need Pippa space in our house, space in which the cat can breathe and feel comfortable again. This story of Jesus cleansing the temple, it's one of the few stories that's actually in all four of the Gospels, and you know, what we know of Jesus's life is pieced together from various sources. But this moment of Jesus going into the temple and in a rage, just cleaning house, is in all four. And so it seems to must have been one of those quintessential moments in which Jesus arrives on the scene without a silly little parable or without a riddle that you have to scratch your head and figure out. He just walks in and he's mad and he does something about it. What's notable about this particular reading in John's Gospel is that it happens chapter 2, right? And so like this is kind of foreshadowing. In the other Gospels, it happens towards the end during Holy Week. But there's this notion within John's Gospel that Jesus has zeal, he has fire, he has the Spirit within him, and he is prone to being offended. He has a standard, and that he expects at least the temple of all places to uphold a high standard. And so this scene of Jesus cleansing the temple is it's quintessential. It is central to who Jesus is. Thinking about cleaning things, I wondered what Jesus wanted that space for. So he saw what was happening. People were changing money, probably currencies, so that they could buy the sacrifices they needed, so that they could give them to the priests, so they could be one with God. And so inevitably, it seemed obvious to Jesus that there was some cheating going on and some corruption going on. And so, and that it just wasn't right. It just wasn't right. You may remember back in the Christmas story, one of those little tiny detailed scenes towards the end of Christmas. In fact, it's after December 25th when we read this story. Mary and Joseph take Jesus to the temple to have him circumcised and blessed and all that stuff. And one of the details is that Mary and Joseph have to buy 2 turtle doves so that they can properly bless their newborn son, who just happened to be the Messiah. Never mind that detail, but they still had to pay this price. And there's no doubt in my mind that Jesus watched his parents whenever they went to the temple, seasonally or annually. They had to figure out how they were going to find the shekels for turtle doves, so they could be right with God, just to be right with God. When we clear out space in our spirits as well as in our physical places, we have room for things that should be there. We have room for things that should be there. And I'm wondering, what did Jesus expect for the temple? Certainly it wasn't all this commerce. In other versions, in the other Gospels, what Jesus shouts is, this is supposed to be a house of prayer. And so it sounds to me like Jesus wanted the temple to be a house of prayer. And yet it had been turned into something far, far less divine, right? Lent is about the cleaning. It's about the cleaning of our spirits. We unburden ourselves through prayer. We commit ourselves to prayer so that we can get unburdened. And that's not selfish. That's self-necessary. If I'm carrying around all of the weight, then what can I accomplish? What is my purpose if I'm just carrying around stuff weighing me down? And Jesus calls us, the church calls us, Lent calls us to lay our burdens down. To lay our burdens down. Oh, I should have played that song instead. Maybe next week. We lay our burdens down so that we can take upon ourselves the purposes of Jesus, the purposes of Christ, the purposes of God. So we go through this season for a purpose, to lay down burdens. Burdens can be sorrows. They can be all the things that we named in our prayer time. They can be sins. We have to confess those things. I don't know how you get rid of something that you won't admit is there. And I want rid of things that are within me that are weighing me down. The sorrows, for sure. The disappointments, the angers, the hurts, the sins, the wrongdoings, the resentments I keep on with myself. And I just want those gone. So throughout Lent, we're also trying to practice a little bit of connecting like our personal spiritual life with like communal stuff, right? So what we do theologically within ourselves of understanding God, we also apply to the church. We also apply to the world, I guess. And when we, as just as much as we are unburdening ourselves with sorrows and guilts, and the world outside is full of sorrows and guilts and wrongdoings, and the world needs opportunities to unburden themselves. Part of the role of the church is to open up the invitation to everybody, godly and ungodly people, Christian and unchristian people, churched and unchurched people, to say to them, you can be unburdened from what weighs you down. And even if you don't believe in God, we think you have a God-given purpose. And if you lay your burdens down, you can pick up that God-given purpose and be blessed through it. And we feel this way, we believe this way because of the example of Jesus. This very text tells us that Jesus went into that place to cleanse the temple, certainly, but also to share what he was doing. The theme in Lent is he loved them to the end. And really on this Sunday, we have this monumental moment. It's in chapter 2, but we also get a glimpse of the end. And the end is of Jesus emptying himself, even his life, for the world. For the world, for the cosmos, for the universe, for all of creation, including us. And if that's what Jesus is doing, and if we are Christians to be like Jesus, we have to figure out how to give our lives for others. Before Jesus goes back into the temple, actually after Jesus leaves for the last time, he goes into the upper room with his disciples and he shares Holy Communion. And he gives us an emblem of what he is doing in this season, and that is giving his life and all of his love for us. And when we share in this Holy Communion, we take into ourselves, into our bodies, and into our spirits his purpose, his great sacrificial love. And we also are transformed to be and to do likewise. And so we, in a moment here, are going to share in the body and the blood of Christ so that we can be transformed, so that we can be rid of those burdens and pick up the burden, the glorious, joyous, gracious burden that is following Christ. May it be so for me and for you. Thanks be to God.